Before the world knew her as Halsey, the voice that could break hearts and rebuild them in the same breath, she was actually Nicolette Frangipane, a girl who didn't fit anywhere. Born in 1994 in Edison, New Jersey, she was the child of contradictions. Her mother worked security, her father managed cars, and the world around her constantly told her she was too much, too loud, too strange to belong. But even as a little girl, Ashley felt music in her bones. While other kids played games, she wrote poetry. While others tried to blend in, she wanted to stand out. She used words like armor, a way to make sense of a world that didn't seem built for her. By her teenage years, life was far from easy. Her family struggled with money, her mental health became fragile, and at 17, she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a reality that made her feel isolated and misunderstood. She began channeling her pain into writing songs, pouring her soul into notebooks filled with lyrics that would later make millions cry. But life kept testing her. She was kicked out of her home, spent nights sleeping on friends' couches, and even found herself homeless, wondering if she'd ever escape the cycle of rejection. Most people would have given up, but Ashley, the future Halsey, refused to be defined by her circumstances. When she picked up a guitar and uploaded her first song online, Ghost, she wasn't expecting fame, she was desperate for connection. That song, raw and aching with honesty, exploded overnight. Suddenly, the internet was talking about this mysterious new voice who sang about heartbreak and survival with poetic rage. Record labels called Halsey, a name she created as an anagram of Ashley and a nod to the street where she'd found herself reborn, was no longer invisible. She had turned her pain into her passport. Her first EP, Room 93, wasn't just music. It was confession turned into art. It told stories of broken hotel rooms, temporary love, and permanent loneliness. Every lyric was soaked in truth. Fans saw themselves in her vulnerability. She wasn't a polished pop princess. She was raw, real, and beautifully imperfect. Then came Badlands, her debut album, the dystopian masterpiece that felt like a map of her mind. Songs like Colors, Control, and New Americana made her a symbol for misfits everywhere, kids who didn't belong, who felt too broken, too passionate, too different. But success didn't erase her struggles. Behind the glamour, Halsey fought inner battles. She faced public scrutiny, toxic relationships, and the constant pressure of fame. Yet, through every heartbreak, she came back stronger. She began speaking openly about mental health, reproductive rights, and women's empowerment, using her voice not just to sing but to stand for something. Her bravery inspired millions who finally saw someone in the spotlight saying the things they were too afraid to say. When she performed live, Halsey wasn't just singing, she was bleeding truth. Her concerts became safe spaces for the brokenhearted, the outcasts, and the dreamers. She made pain sound like poetry, and her art became a lifeline for people who needed to be reminded that being different wasn't a curse, it was a superpower. She wasn't afraid to evolve, either. Every album, from Hopeless Fountain Kingdom to Manic to If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power, showed a new version of her. One moment she was soft and vulnerable, the next fierce and rebellious. She wrote about love, loss, trauma, motherhood, and identity, never filtering herself to fit the industry mold. She became the kind of artist who didn't chase trends. Trends chased her. Halsey's story isn't just about fame, it's about fighting for your voice when the world tries to silence it. She faced bullying, homelessness, bipolar episodes, and public heartbreaks, and still rose higher. She proved that pain can be turned into beauty, that scars can become songs, and that being different isn't a weakness, it's your destiny. Today, Halsey stands as more than a singer. She's a writer, a painter, a mother, a survivor, and a symbol of strength for millions. She built her empire not from privilege, but from persistence. Her success wasn't handed to her. She earned it with sleepless nights, tear-stained notebooks, and a voice that refused to fade. She once said, "I don't want to be a pop star. I want to be a voice for people who think they're not good enough." And that's exactly what she became, a reminder that you can come from chaos and still build something beautiful. Fame, for most people, is a dream, but for Halsey, it was both a crown and a battlefield. When she released Badlands, her debut album, the world finally began to understand the force she truly was. Critics tried to categorize her: pop, alternative, electronic, indie. But Halsey didn't belong in boxes. She built her own kingdom, chaotic, colorful, and unapologetically real. Badlands wasn't just a collection of songs. It was a confession, a rebellion, and a rescue mission for lost souls. Her voice became the anthem of those who were too complex to be simple, too emotional to be cold, and too honest to hide. But fame came at a price. Every headline, every interview, every tweet dissected her identity. People wanted to define her, her sexuality, her relationships, her opinions, as if understanding her would make her less intimidating. But Halsey refused to be simplified. "I am not a story someone else gets to write," she once said, and she meant it. In an industry obsessed with perfection, she chose authenticity. While many artists created personas, Halsey created art that reflected her real self, messy, brilliant, and fearless. When Hopeless Fountain Kingdom arrived, it wasn't just music, it was a cinematic universe. Inspired by Romeo and Juliet, it told a story of love, rebellion, and identity. Halsey painted heartbreak as both a tragedy and a triumph. Songs like Now or Never and Bad at Love captured the pain of falling apart and the beauty of surviving it. She became the voice of her generation, not because she was flawless, but because she was flawed and proud of it. Her fans didn't just listen to her music, they lived inside it. They found healing in her heartbreak and courage in her chaos. But behind the stage lights, Halsey was fighting silent battles. The pressure of fame intensified her bipolar disorder. She faced criticism for speaking her truth, harassment for her openness, and loneliness even in rooms full of people. Yet she never hid. Instead, she turned her struggles into anthems. With every song, she reminded the world that being broken doesn't mean being weak, it means being real. Then came Manic, her most personal album. It wasn't polished or perfect. It was raw, unpredictable, and achingly human. It showed all sides of her, the romantic, the fighter, the dreamer, and the survivor. Songs like Without Me revealed the heartbreak of being betrayed and the strength of rising from it. The song became one of her biggest hits, not because it was catchy, but because it was honest. It wasn't a love song. It was a declaration of self-worth. The world began to see Halsey not just as an artist, but as a revolution, someone who didn't follow the music industry's script, but wrote her own. She wasn't afraid to be political, emotional, or controversial. She stood on stages at rallies, spoke about women's rights, mental health, and identity, and made sure her art carried purpose. For her, music wasn't about fame, it was about freedom. And when she released If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power, she transformed again, this time into a woman reclaiming her body, her identity, and her story. The album, produced by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, was gothic, cinematic, and deeply introspective. It explored motherhood, femininity, and power, all with a raw honesty few artists dared to express. The accompanying film wasn't just art, it was a statement. Halsey, once homeless and voiceless, now stood as a creator who commanded worlds. Her journey through pregnancy brought a new chapter of vulnerability and empowerment. She spoke openly about miscarriage, endometriosis, and the complex reality of womanhood, not for sympathy, but for truth. Her courage gave other women permission to speak their pain out loud. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was leading. In every era of her life, Halsey reinvented herself, not to please the world, but to understand herself. She never let fame shape her. She shaped fame around her story. She became proof that you could be sensitive and strong, broken and brilliant, lost and still luminous. Her words became more than lyrics, they became lifelines for those who felt unseen. The girl who once slept on rooftops now stood on the world's biggest stages, yet she never forgot where she came from. She used her platform to amplify causes bigger than herself, donating, advocating, and constantly reminding fans that their voice mattered, too. She showed that true power doesn't come from fame. It comes from authenticity. And maybe that's Halsey's greatest success. She didn't just make music, she made people feel. She gave a generation permission to cry, to scream, to love themselves fiercely even when the world told them not to. She made being human cool again. By the time Halsey reached the peak of her fame, she had already achieved what most could only dream of: platinum albums, sold-out tour, and a loyal fanbase that spanned continents. But for her, success wasn't measured in awards or charts. It was measured in truth. She never wanted to be a product of the music industry. She wanted to be an artist of the human experience. While other stars chased perfection, Halsey chased authenticity, even if it made people uncomfortable. As the spotlight grew brighter, she realized that fame often came with chains. Record executives tried to shape her image, control her art, and polish her rough edges. But Halsey's rawness was her power. She refused to be edited into silence. She fought for creative control over her albums, her videos, and even her public narrative. She turned every no she heard into another layer of determination. Behind every photoshoot and every performance was a woman who had learned that freedom was worth more than fame. Her career wasn't just a journey, it was a revolution in self-expression. Halsey used her music videos as cinematic mirrors, reflecting her evolution as both an artist and a woman. In Graveyard, she explored the fragility of love. In Nightmare, she unleashed a storm of feminist fire, screaming on behalf of every woman who'd ever been told to smile more or speak less. Each song was a confession, a protest, a love letter to survival. She wasn't singing for perfection. She was singing for truth. Her art became louder, more experimental, and more fearless. She began blending genres, pop, alternative, rock, electronic, punk, to create something entirely her own. Critics couldn't label her, and that was exactly how she liked it. She once said, "People like to put you in a box, so they know how to treat you. I keep breaking the box, so they never can." But her influence extended far beyond music. Halsey became a symbol of representation, biracial, bisexual, bipolar, and she never hid any part of herself. She turned her personal labels into public liberation. She gave people permission to exist without apology. When she spoke on stage about mental health or performed pregnant at award shows, she shattered expectations of what it meant to be a female artist. She wasn't just creating music, she was creating space for others to be seen. When she became a mother, the world watched as Halsey transformed yet again. Her journey into motherhood wasn't a soft retreat, it was a roar of resilience. She posted unfiltered photos, spoke about the raw beauty and pain of giving birth, and reminded millions that motherhood didn't erase your identity. It deepened it. She wrote songs about the complexity of life, not the glossy version the world preferred, but the messy, magnificent truth of it. In interviews, she spoke with the same courage that defined her lyrics. She talked about how the world romanticized broken women but ignored the strength it took to survive that brokenness. She reminded her fans that being vulnerable didn't mean being weak. "I'm not fragile," she said. "I'm transparent." That line captured her essence. She wasn't hiding her cracks. She was turning them into stained glass. Her artistry continued to evolve. With every performance, she blurred the lines between music, poetry, and activism. She didn't just stand on stage, she owned it, turning concerts into storytelling experiences that felt like therapy sessions for thousands. Fans left her shows in tears, not because they were sad, but because they felt understood. That was Halsey's magic. She didn't just connect through sound. She connected through soul. She also became one of the few artists to openly challenge the system that made her famous. When streaming platforms and industry politics threatened her creative independence, she took her fight to the public, showing how even global stars could be silenced if they didn't conform. But instead of backing down, she doubled down on her authenticity. Her honesty sparked conversations that went far beyond her own career, about artistic control, exploitation, and the value of truth in a commercial world. In doing so, Halsey became a hero for a generation that values realness over perfection. She wasn't afraid to speak about things most people avoided: body image, trauma, identity, mental illness, because she knew silence was dangerous. Her transparency saved lives. She showed millions that it's okay to not be okay, that pain can be a teacher, and that vulnerability is the truest form of power. As the years passed, her legacy grew stronger. Not because of fame, but because she stayed human. She built her empire on empathy. She turned her weaknesses into her weapon. She didn't just inspire her fans, she empowered them to write their own stories. Her journey from homelessness to GlobalIcon wasn't just a comeback story. It was a manifesto for survival, creativity, and courage. And maybe that's what makes Halsey unforgettable. She is the living proof that you can rise from the ashes of chaos and build a cathedral of art from your pain. She is a reminder that no matter how dark life becomes, the light inside you is still strong enough to start again.